you trying to climb the corporate ladder? You are an ambitious young professional working a 9 to 5 job and you want to know how to become a baddie and a boss? This video is for you. Welcome back to Through the Looking Glass podcast. My name is Lavanya, and my goal is to empower listeners, even in the smallest way possible, and improve your well being. If you find my podcast and enjoying it, please take a minute to follow and rate the show. It would really make a huge difference for a brand new show and lets me know I'm doing a good job. If you want to know more about me, behind the scenes, and podcast clips, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. All my socials are linked below. So, this week's episode is about me sharing my experiences working in the corporate world. You can learn how to be a corporate boss in 10 steps. A little bit about my background. I work in the engineering industry and I've held various positions, including lead architect and senior engineer at 2 different Fortune 500 companies in the past 7+ years. The first step or tip that I want to share is work on your presence. Creating a strong presence in the workplace can make or break your career. Confidence is everything. I actually have a dedicated video on how to be confident on my podcast, so you can go check that out if you like. So, being confident at work is all about asking questions, taking charge, and generally knowing how to be part of an effective team. Most corporate roles have a hierarchical reporting structure and team dynamics. So, even if your day-to-day tasks are individual, you're naturally spending a lot of time in meetings, collaborating, reporting, etc. So, even if you're in a junior position, don't be afraid to ask questions. It shows that you're listening. It can be a simple clarification question, especially if you work in large technical teams. It can be the only opportunity to connect with the leaders, and this is one way to make a good impression. People who speak up and vocalize will always be the ones who get promoted over the genius, introverted employees. Personally, I would focus on listening over taking notes. I know that's probably confusing to hear, and not everyone is great at remembering everything, but I do think making eye contact and nodding and showing that you're an engaged listener creates a stronger presence in the room. You can always take 10 minutes after the meeting to write all of your notes down when it's fresh in your memory, or even occasionally jot down some notes during the meeting. Just think about how it looks like to the leader who's presenting or talking. If you're huddled down in your chair and writing notes the whole time, that's the opposite of a strong presence, right? Another common mistake is focusing too much on responding in these types of meetings. You want to focus on being a good listener instead. That includes your body language and responsiveness. This might even seem small, and you might not realize you're doing it, but sit up straight, open shoulders. Everyone slouches, but you can make a mental note to work on your body language to create a stronger presence in these meetings. When you do speak, speak slowly. This shows that you're confident in what you're saying, and everyone can follow easier too. This might sound obvious, but speak at a higher volume than you think necessary. Sounding soft and mousy isn't a great sign of a rising leader. Personally, I'm not blessed with a high pitch, so I have to be self-aware to speak up more. All of this takes practice. Just pick 1 or 2 things that you can work on at one time to improve. A bonus tip, if you are the lead or trying to land a lead role, make sure you sit at the head of the table. You have the best view to be seen and heard. It shows you're confident and ready to take charge. Step 2 is closely related to step 1. You need to dress for success if you want to be the boss. Obviously, there's different dress codes with different companies, even with different roles. Customer facing might be more formal. A lot of teams are business casual. So it goes without saying, know that and build your wardrobe accordingly. Generally, a lot of software roles are more casual, but I must protest. Please don't wear sweats. There's a place and a time for loungewear. Quoting my favorite fictional character, Blair Waldorf, tights are not pants. Ladies, please don't wear leggings to work. Save that for Pilates. My point is, no matter what your dress code is, you should look presentable and well put together. No one wants to trust a disheveled human in a onesie with $1 million project. I know we live in the Zoom era, but literally just throw on a blazer on top of your casual clothes if it's a customer-facing meeting. Even if it's just your face on Zoom, make sure you look presentable with your hair and clean face. I have a lot of hair, so I almost always lean towards a bun. It's easy and keeps my hair out of my face, so I can just concentrate on the meeting. I guess I'm a bit more traditional when it comes to makeup. I would avoid any loud makeup. You know exactly what I mean. Just save the glitter eyeshadow for the club. And men, please upkeep your beard if you choose to have one. The caveman look was never in and never will be. I know a lot of people have hybrid schedules these days, and return to office is pushed in a lot of places. I don't know if this is a byproduct of COVID years or what is going on in the workplace? And I can't believe I have to say this on YouTube, but please shower before you come to the office. I truly don't care if you're going to be in a lab all day, but no one wants to smell your BO. However, if you're listening to this video, you are ambitious and you have your life together. So I trust you don't need this step, but in case you needed a post-COVID refresher, you got it. Step 3 in your corporate boss era is get organized. This might sound simple, but being disciplined is really important when it comes to being a high achiever. Figure out what works for you. I'm not a huge morning person advocate. Everyone is different, so shift your schedule accordingly. I recently saw research about how the 9 to 5 schedule was invented to be in sync with the circadian rhythm that men operate on, so day to night, and women operate on the lunar cycle, which is 28 days. Considering corporations are male dominated, it makes sense it was set up in a way that's synced up with the male bodies. Ladies, this doesn't mean end all. Of course, lots of women do work typical 9 to 5 jobs, and it is doable. But understanding what's optimal for your body really helped me validate how draining corporate jobs can be. I know for myself, getting 9 hours of sleep is optimal, so I do start my days later in the morning. Most corporate jobs are pretty flexible with hours as long as you're available for stand ups and meetings that have to be during the business hours. If you focus better later in the day, that's something that you can coordinate with your manager to shift your schedule. I believe in working smarter, not harder. At the end of the day, your work output quality is what sets you apart. So figure out your schedule, make to-do lists daily, set goals and actionable steps every week to set yourself up for success. I start my Monday mornings with a plan for the week. What needs to be done, what important meetings need to be covered, any conflict that needs to be communicated, and blocking off time for longer tasks. I spent the last 15 minutes of the day writing a to-do list. I've found this to be way more efficient than writing to-do lists in the mornings. That way you can jump into the next day knowing what's on your task list and not have to sit there just blanking out. Another common thing that happens is people overestimating themselves and overpromising. Being disciplined with your schedule will prevent you from spreading yourself too thin. Your goal should always be under promise and over deliver. I think a lot of people fail to understand that about corporate jobs. You don't get an extra reward for working extra hours last minute to get something out early. The reward is non existent in 95% of the case, so I always choose work life balance. The goal is to increase your productivity during your allocated work hours, and getting organized is an important step. Another key step to succeed at corporate jobs is overcommunicating. If I had to pick one tip from today's video, I would pick this one. You need to understand that you are one in 100,000 employees, or whatever your company's ratio is. Your manager is human. Your coworkers are human, at least for the time being. So no one can read your mind. No one is going to hold your hand. You are not in school anymore. So it's important to take control of your work life. Good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. You should always ask questions to clarify the deliverables in a meeting with your manager, summarize the ask back to the stakeholders, and confirm you understood them clearly. Don't just nod along and make assumptions, going off on your own tangent later. Not every stakeholder is clear on their ask, so drilling down on what needs to be done is part of your job. You might think you don't have any questions, and of course, don't just ask a question for the sake of asking one. And trust me, I have been there when the lead will ask, any questions? And you genuinely don't have one, but there's no excuse. You can always repeat what the deliverables are, ask about the timeline, or suggest what the next steps are. Then send the follow-up emails with the agreed upon deliverables and action items and who the responsible parties are. Corporate memory is very, very short, so written communication is very important. You should sound like a broken record. You are not annoying for asking again. People will 100% forget if you don't follow up. So don't forget to confirm, follow up, reiterate. You got this. Step 5 to crush your corporate job is being diligent with your records. I hear this phrase all the time. Be proactive, not reactive. You should always leave a paper trail. Even if you think something is insignificant, you never know when something will come back to bite you. Climbing the corporate ladder is not for the faint-hearted. People will shift blame to others to get themselves out of trouble and get ahead in their own careers. I've seen this happen all the time. No one is your best friend. I am here to remind you to look out for yourself first. Especially with external engagements and customer deliverables, you don't want to leave things up in the air. If you're in that type of role and you deal with this, then you can attest to how diligent you need to be so that your team doesn't become the bottleneck in the product lifecycle. Communicating across your own organization is an important aspect of being proactive. You should always CC your manager on emails that showcases your achievements and progress with customers. You need to keep a running list of your achievements throughout the year, not just when you do your PM. You can even send self-assessments quarterly to your manager. Most managers will do one-on-ones, so make sure you share your progress. Ask for those stretch assignments. And you should always write SMART goals for your PM, even if it's not pushed by the company. You need to be able to justify why you deserve an exceeds or a promotion by showing you did XYZ, and here's the email trail of all of the work projects completed. Don't just assume they know things. Even if there's emails, you don't know what gets lost in someone's inbox. Advocating for yourself is personally the hardest step for me and something that I'm still working on. But I do want to emphasize on being diligent and communicating consistently. People who master self-advocacy will exceed at corporate jobs and are always the ones who get promoted, even if they're underqualified. Step 6 is going to be a hard pill to swallow. I know no one wants to go to the office, including me, but team culture is important to a certain degree. Interacting in person does make a difference to build highly effective teams. I know I spent the last 5 steps talking about focusing on yourself to succeed, but being a team player is so valued in workplaces. Helping your team members is appreciated by managers, and you want to be known as someone who's valuable. Also, I think it's important to understand there's a knowledge exchange among team members. Knowing how to tactfully exchange favors is an important skill to build, especially if you want to be a manager. And the reality is, if you are only a face on a Zoom, you can't have that same connection and bond. Ultimately, likability is a huge factor in success. You help your friends, right? You are more willing to delegate or recommend a coworker who's your friend versus someone you've literally never met in person. This is where I think you can maximize your hybrid schedule. If you're going to the office 2 or 3 days, use those days to interact with people on your team. Go to those happy hours or get lunch with your boss. If you're like me and you work in a male-dominated field, baking might be your superpower. Boys will eat anything and forever be grateful for your cookies or snacks that you bring in. If you suck at baking, don't worry. Just buy them pizza or beer after work. Remember things about their lives and ask them questions about their interest. Also, steer clear of gossiping. That's a huge no-no in the workplace. Ultimately, they are still your coworkers, so keep it professional. My point is, building a strong relationship with your team does matter. You might be their boss one day, and you need them on your side. If you're already a lead or a manager, team building exercises is a game changer to build effective teams. You should pick activities like softball or escape rooms. This gets the team together to know each other better and figure out a way to work together. Your golden step 7 is networking. Your net worth is your network. If you're a corporate baddie, you should know this. Most corporations have ERGs. Join at least one that resonates with you. It is important to meet people outside of your immediate team. Your next role might come out of that connection. Set up informational interviews with managers in other departments, even if you aren't looking for a new job. If anything, that's an even better time to connect. I know sometimes it feels like I have nothing to say or ask, but it doesn't hurt to establish a relationship. If you're only ever reaching out to ask for a favor, that's not a mutually beneficial relationship, right? I would work on finding mentors at different levels in your company. You need people in your corner who can advocate for you. One type of mentor I look for is someone not in my department so they can give me objective advice on what I should do in my career. Another one I look for is a female manager who's part of another generation. I personally want to hear from female leaders. Generally, it always helps to get perspective from people who are ahead of you in their careers. So build your network. There are professional organizations that you can join too, either technical or social. You can sign up to go to their conferences. That's another way to expand your network as well. My step 8 is stepping into your growth mindset. This rule I follow is controversial, but you need to switch jobs every 2 years or get promoted with at least a 10% raise. There's no loyalty in the corporate world. So stop staying in the same job with the 3% raises every year. You can be the most talented employee, but you can't grow financially by staying in one job. This may be unfair, but that's the reality. Well, I think you should use your own judgment and circumstances to decide. But if you're looking to grow and get to the executive level, this is the formula. I don't think this is necessarily applicable to everyone, so I do want to caveat that. There's nothing wrong with staying in the same job if it's giving you everything that you want. It just depends on your priorities. Maybe you're a working mom or dad and you just want a stable, balanced job, then you stay with what works. It's definitely hard work to pivot and switch jobs constantly, and it can be disruptive to your family life, and that's totally normal to prioritize. But I do want to assume that if you're listening to my podcast, you are trying to hustle and upgrade your career. So you just need to keep pivoting to grow in the corporate world. It is the proven method that I've seen, and it's worked for me so far. Step 9 is for the advanced corporate baddies. Please set boundaries with work. Ultimately, a job is just a job. It should facilitate life and not the other way around. You as a person matters more. You will burn out if you push yourself too far working. Your long-term success relies on avoiding burnout. So rest. I personally rarely had to work over 40 hours, and the one job that asked me to, I ended up leaving that role quickly. I personally just don't think it's worth it unless you're a business owner or a partner in a company. If you are a regular employee, there's no way your financial gains are worth ruining your health and peace of mind. I know it's normalized in industries like finance or companies like Amazon, but that's why the retention rate there is so low. Maybe for someone out there, that lifestyle is worth it, but I personally just don't get it. There's plenty of high-paying six-figure jobs that allows you to have work-life balance, but you have to enforce boundaries to get that. Corporations want to squeeze the maximum amount of work out of you, and that's their job to push you to do that with the lowest monetary exchange possible. You need to be smarter to realize that and make sure you're only doing the work that you're required to do contractually. Your stretch assignments should only be 10 to 20% of your workload, and that's going to help you prepare for your next roles. Learn to say no when you are asked to do tasks outside of your regular role. Learn to say no when someone is scheduling meetings outside of your work hours. Don't reschedule your workout class to accommodate these requests. For example, it's not the end of the world to say no, and your coworkers will ultimately not care if you need to reschedule. It's just not that deep. And certainly don't apologize for setting these boundaries either. Be direct and straightforward with your work boundaries. If someone is making you feel bad or uncomfortable for having these boundaries, that's not your problem, it's theirs. You can't help others if you don't help yourself first. So, prioritize your health and well being. My final step that I want to hit on is conflict resolution. It's a bit of a bonus step in the corporate boss series today. No job or workplace is drama free. We live in a world with all sorts of personalities and people come from different backgrounds, right? It's natural when you put a bunch of type A people together in a team and not everyone is going to see eye to eye. I can make a longer video on conflict resolution, but my suggestion to resolve workplace conflict is just listening to everyone's sides. Acknowledging people's viewpoint is more important than being right. People just want to be heard. ultimately you have to be able to work with these people, right? So keep that in the back of your mind. You don't want to be ending relationships. Be willing to ask if something went wrong directly to the coworker before taking it to the manager. Definitely keep the managers in the loop. It's ultimately their job to manage the team, but if you're trying to rise up as a leader in the company, knowing how to resolve conflicts in teams is invaluable. Reading people and understanding their perspectives is key to being a manager. If you listen, people will tell you exactly what went wrong most of the time. So don't be afraid to ask for feedback and be willing to give feedback too. Just be polite and diplomatic as much as possible. Don't raise your voice. Everyone wants a peaceful workplace, so be part of the solution and not the problem. That brings me to the end of my list on how to be a corporate boss in 10 steps. I hope you found this helpful to grow in your career. What are some tips and suggestions that you have? I would love to hear them. And thank you so much for listening or watching wherever you are in the world. I love and appreciate you for following my podcast. Bye.